as an NSFM president, I am also on the board of FCM, which is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And they've just put a very small contingent together. There's a National Association of Cities conference. I've actually spoken at that before in my pre-life. That's being held in Washington, and they've asked me if I would be part of that. And I couldn't say yes fast enough. So conversations with with our counterparts in the US. The premier has done that, and I have to say I love it when he's over there and he's coming back and he's saying we're having these conversations, because both sides are going to suffer. This is not just Canada. This is both sides, and we need to hear from them. What are their concerns? What are ours?
Welcome to Municipal Affairs. Today, we are diving into the Nova Scotia's 2025-2026 provincial budget, what it delivers, what it lacks, and what it means for municipalities across the province. Last month, Finance and Treasury Board Minister John Lohr tabled Budget 2025-2026, Unlocking Our Potential, outlining a financial plan that promises to lower taxes, invest in healthcare, and stimulate economic growth and make life more affordable. Now, according to the province, with over $500 million in tax cuts, increased spending on housing, and a record-breaking $2.3 billion capital investment, this budget is certainly ambitious. But for municipalities, the key question remains: does this budget provide the support they need to thrive? So joining us to discuss all of this is Pam Mood, president of the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. She'll give us her insights into how municipalities are reacting to this budget, what it means for local governments, and where there might be still gaps in support. And of course, we'll be discussing some of the bigger challenges that lay ahead, particularly adapting to economic pressures, including new U.S. tariffs that could impact local industries in Nova Scotia. So there is a lot to unpack in today's show. So stay with us as we break down the numbers, the policies, and the real-world impacts. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. President, thank you so much for sitting down with me. There has been a lot of news over the last month and over the last 24 hours as of recording this episode that I want to get your reaction on. And I want to start with a story close to home, and that is Budget 2025-2026, which was tabled last month in the Nova Scotia legislature. How did this budget impact municipalities for the good or the bad?
Well, there was a lot of good. I think every budget is mixed for everyone, but I would say a lot of good. One of the downward dips was in grants and contributions, both municipal affairs and emergency management. So we're seeing a similar reduction in municipal affairs, municipal infrastructure and finance. But the new growth and renewal infrastructure development program must be in there, which is good news. So we're not certain how these amounts will be distributed, but we'll see what happens there. We just appreciate any funding programs that support the function of municipalities. A lot of municipal units, obviously in Nova Scotia and throughout the entire province, are rural. So the rural cellular coverage for emergency preparedness, that is one of NSFM's advocacy pieces and priorities. So we did see a $22.4 million for year 2 of the Cellular for Nova Scotia program. So that's great. I think there was like a $70 million multi-year commitment to that, to expanding access to cellular services in the province. So we're seeing that roll out, which is huge when it comes to safety and other issues. Policing costs, I think, we would have liked to have seen more funding for municipal policing support. That's our biggest. You don't want to look at the budgets when you see policing. It just kind of explodes everywhere. Huge amounts. I think it's the largest on most budgets. So perhaps we'll be able to make more use of the considerable increase in community safety funding. So I think we were at around about $500,000 last year, and that's up to 2.518 this year. But usually, municipal funding comes from policing priorities budget line. So that's the same. And then we've had cost share initiatives. Public Works limited the cost share initiatives budget. That wasn't good. And 2.6 million to address the unsheltered homelessness, leveraging an equal investment from the federal government's, that would be the Canada-Nova Scotia Contribution Agreement. So, I think in my estimation and everyone else's, the leveraging piece is huge. It's always key to kind of doubling your money without having to double your money. So, those were the pieces, kind of the highlights there that we saw.
Do you feel like you were heard during this budget deliberation with the budget that was tabled? Because I know that every provincial municipal organization, whether it be NSFM or UNNB, they all have their asks when it comes to provincial budgets. Do you feel with the budget that was tabled in February that your concerns were being heard by this government? Because this is the first budget post-election for this new progressive conservative government.
Yeah, it's post-election first budget. And I can say, I wasn't at the NSFM table when the budget happened, when they were working on it the year before. So I just came in November. So those discussions, I'm not sure. There are some great things. There are some things that, of course, we'd like to see more on, but that's the case with every budget. So we just see where we can go from here.
You talked about the investment in capital investment in about $2.3 billion in capital investment in this budget. How much of that do you expect to directly support municipal infrastructure needs, if any?
The infrastructure needs. So there's a whole slew of, when it comes to the infrastructure, obviously you can't, I guess the best way to say it is you can't run a municipal unit, you can't grow a county, a community, you can't grow a province without infrastructure. It's point blank, and that lends itself to, let's say, housing, because it's one of the biggest issues. Housing, businesses, those pieces that we have to build infrastructure for. So we need the help there. We can't, folks are screaming, and rightfully so, for more housing. They did put money in for unsheltered housing, which I believe, can't quote me on this one, but the smaller units that will get folks off of the streets and out of insecure housing. But when it comes to regular housing, you have to have things like the infrastructure pieces for water and sewer and everything else. So we can't build without that. When it comes to business as well, if I want to do a subdivision that will take care of a number of unhoused people, and it doesn't mean they will be moving in. It just means that my friend Mayor David Mitchell has taught me this one. It's called NOAA, the naturally occurring affordable housing. So where you would build something that someone else can move out of and move into that newer piece, which may cost a little bit more money, but then folks that need something more affordable can move into the kind of backfill that space. But we can't build the new without infrastructure, the water, sewer, the piping, all those pieces. So we're needing help with that, and an understanding that housing is crucial, and all those pieces put together means we'll see what we need, hopefully.
One of the key areas that your organization has been advocating about for the last few years, and even in our conversation prior, was municipal fiscal sustainability for municipalities, proper funding. Does this budget help address that concern, or is this budget a good first step for the province and municipalities to work together on those key infrastructure challenges, those key concerns that you may have with potential lack of funding that you have seen in the past?
Yeah, what a great question. And you know what? I haven't, I've read the budget. I've kind of, me, I just make my way through it and kind of attack each piece as it comes. We need to, I'm not going to say that this attacks that or gives us what we need or not, because I'd have to study it further, but the extra ways to make money, I mean, it's all based on taxes. So if you look at it that way, I guess you could kind of sneak your question in the back door, and well, you could walk in the front door too, okay? That's okay for you. But the different ways we make our funds to manage our municipalities, mainly, and I would say not just mainly, significantly off of taxes. So more builds, and not provincial builds, because we don't tax those. Sadly, I wish we could. That's something I'd like to change. If you're going to build it, we're going to tax it. But that's not going to work. I don't think the province will go for that. We understand, but the ability to build others, and then it goes right back to the infrastructure piece that I was just talking about. We just need to make sure that we're in line with the infrastructure, more builds. And I can say that, one of the things that NSFM is always pushing for, always wanting the discussions on. It's great to have, great minds at the table, wherever they come from, to have those discussions. How else can we bring in funds into a municipal unit? Because if it's just taxes, you can't keep upping the taxes and putting everything on a taxpayer. So it's some hard stuff. Feel like I'm a juggler. I might join the circus after. Woo!
In Nova Scotia, it's a unique cabinet position that Minister of Finance and Treasury Board has, because he's also the minister responsible for municipal affairs. So you get to deal with him on a regular basis. I know your organization has been advocating for a stronger partnership between the province and municipalities. In your short time, and I say short time because it feels like it's been forever with everything going on in the world, do you feel like that partnership is blossoming and the seeds have been planted to create a stronger partnership for years to come?
Another great question. So I think so. I've been doing this for 12 years, and there was a different dynamic, maybe that dozen years ago with NSFM in the province. We have a CEO that has built a tremendous relationship with the province, the deputies and staff and everyone else. And I want to say this, and this might help you understand. We understand what the province is attempting to do. This province has repeatedly said, we are a government that gets things done. They have shown that. You can't say you can't see it, because it's there. They want to get it done quickly. And people may disagree with me, but you can't fault that. Like everything in government, regardless of level, it takes so darn long, plain English. But it takes so long, and they have, committed. They've said it. We want to get it done. We want to get it done quickly. So I would say the only downfall with that, and it's separate and apart from that statement, because we completely understand and we want to get things done as well, is the fact that we really want to be at the table for anything that affects municipalities. I've had this conversation with Minister Lohr, who is, our minister, and he's also the Minister of Finance, which I quite like, because he's holding the money purse and he's talking to us. So I think he'd probably get a good chuckle at that, but I've got a lot of respect for him. He has welcomed us to the table. I mean, at least me since I've come on, and I think they understand that we are not trying to change anything. We're trying to say that when we understand it, and when they understand where municipalities are coming from, it's easier to roll out legislation. And so let's sit down together, let's do it together. We need experts in each one of these pieces. So if we go to the Auditor General issue that they had when they put that legislation out, call it for what it is. The Premier did a pivot. He listened to the Auditor General and the concerns of the public. Hugely important. I can't say how much respect I have for that move, the ability for a politician that's leading the province to just pivot. How important is that? And so if we're at these tables discussing things before they're rolled out, I'd bet dollars to donuts that, there would be maybe less pivoting because we are the experts on the ground, understanding what they want to do and just trying to help move some things along with an understanding of what may cause angst for municipal units and try to turn that around. That's a long answer.
It's a long answer, but it's a great answer. And that's the best thing about you. You give me the great answers. Before we turn to the global realities that we currently are under, I have one last question about the budget, and that is, are municipalities better off today than they were on February 17th before this budget was tabled?
Why'd you have to go and throw that out there?
Because I'm the host of a show that talks about municipal issues.
Right? And I'm the guest of the show that doesn't have that answer, because I'll tell you what, I would suggest there are 49 municipal units that may have 49 different answers. I think they're doing some great things. And Yarmouth may have a different answer from HRM, would have a different answer from CBRM, would have a different answer from Annapolis Royal, those types of things. So hit us where we need it most. And those answers kind of roll around to different. I'd say we're rolling in the right direction in general. We're rolling in the right direction. But let me say this. The province is trying to get us where we need to be. And the province is not responsible for what happens across the border any more than, watch me get kicked in the teeth for this one, any more than the Prime Minister is responsible for, high interest rates and a global downturn. Like, we just, people grab onto things and say, the province caused this, or the federal government caused this, or my mayor's to blame, right? And I get it, because if you don't understand, I'm used to that one, but if you don't understand the dynamics and the logistics of what's going on, it's easy to blame. Not blaming this government, I can say that. So I think we're headed in the right direction, but frankly, they're going to need some help from everyone, from municipalities and residents and businesses, because this is a wild world we're living in. Hang on with your seatbelt.
And let's talk about that wild world that we live in, because you're right. The decisions that the south of the border makes, we have no control over that. We can advocate, but we have no control over that. And as of recording this, we are recording this on Tuesday, March 4th. And at midnight to this morning, as of recording this, U.S. President Donald Trump implemented his 25% tariffs on all goods coming in from Canada into the United States, and a 10% tariff on all resources coming in from Canada into the United States. Now, I know NSFM has put out a press release on the potential impacts, but now we are in a completely different world. And by the time this airs, we could be in a completely different world from when we are talking right now. So this conversation may be moot. How will these U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods impact local businesses, local municipalities, supply chains in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, so this is really important, and sometimes the person on the ground is not they're not maybe understanding how everything is impacted, and everything is impacted as soon as you walk out the door. We have to consider everything. So Chris, I'll go the long way around, but the first thing NSFM did, because we thought it was so important, is we reached out to the municipal units, the mayors and the wardens and CAOs, and we said, how is this going to impact you? Give it some thought. You're on the ground, you're covering the entire province, and actually, municipalities are the only groups of people that have elected the entire province. We have people representing everybody in this province. So, we cover all that. So what were some of the, we asked them, how did it impact you? We've got everything, Chris, from infrastructure and housing costs, possibly leading to delayed or canceled projects. Slowdown on housing development could happen. I mean, these tariffs just 12 hours ago, basically, from when we're speaking right now, we can't afford any slowdown on housing of any kind. The people are too important. The cost of living concerns are always there. The increased cost of consumer goods, the cost of living for residents. So we've discussed, we've put that stuff on the table. Business and commercial impact. I can't imagine how they've had to scramble to figure this out, wondering, are the tariffs even going to happen? So I want to have more conversations with businesses. And I know the province is doing that. They have been all along. Municipal wise, not many municipalities have contracts with US companies, but many businesses that municipalities do have work with, they will see that rise. So it's connected in one way or another. Some municipalities feature American companies that pay considerable amounts of their total commercial tax, and local employment puts them in an uncertain place. So that's scary. Sector-specific challenges, companies that rely on trade with the US. Things I always think, like Oxford blueberries, huge. How much business do they do there? They're well diversified, but automotive, fishery industries, they rely. And does that lead to, I don't know, does that lead to unemployment, business closures? We don't know. So the businesses are doing their things. And, municipalities, of course, are concerned that they might not have the capacity to help their commercial community find new markets. This is something everyone has to work on. So, it's and property tax pressures. Where do you get extra money at a municipal level? It's property tax. So a little bit of trouble there, maybe.
I want to take a word off your shelf there, because right behind you, for those who aren't watching this on YouTube or who are listening to this, right behind the mayor's shoulder, the president's shoulder, there's a thing that says dream right there. Now, we are in the early days of this potential trade war. We're in this early days of these tariffs. We do not know what the future holds. Are you optimistic? Do you have a dream that municipalities can overcome these economic tidewaters that we're going to potentially be going through over the next few days, few months, potentially years? Or are you pessimistic that the worst is yet to come?
I'm going to say a couple of things. I think the worst is yet to come, but I'm optimistic, and I'll tell you why, Chris. Because um, I don't think there's any order of government, and I say this respectfully, more resilient than municipal government. We're right on the ground. We're with the people. You don't go to the grocery store without 50 questions. It's an hour to get a loaf of bread, so you have to head out a little bit early. And I can say we love that. We love it because I get to talk to people on the ground. How are you feeling? What are your fears? What are your concerns? So my optimism comes in the face of the fact that we've always survived these things. We have found a way because we're on the ground and we have to. I think in concert with the province, who is again hugely concerned. I mean, I don't know if you've read the Premier's statement on the tariffs today, but I, I was sitting, but I did a standing ovation, and every stop is we're pulling out all the stops to figure this out. We're doing it at the local level. The province is doing it at their level in spades. And, the federal government, they're even working with the federal government. So that's huge. This is not what color tie do you wear? This is how do we ensure, locally, but province-wide and countrywide that we're okay. And we have to be at each other's tables. So I'm optimistic. Doesn't mean it won't get worse before it gets better. Sort of like me trying to do some house cleaning in the spring. It's always messier. I'm just a plain English kind of girl, right? But doesn't mean it doesn't get worse before it gets better. But as long as we know that we can brace ourselves and figure out those little pieces that will keep us going until we get where we need to be. And I have hope that we will do that.
President Mood, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to sit down and talk about the budget and these tariffs. I feel like this is probably not this is not the last conversation we have on these tariffs. So I appreciate your time and sitting down and doing this.
It's my pleasure, and I will be in Washington all next week. Just heads up.
Oh,
Having
okay. I did not know this, so I've got to ask
Oh, I don't tell too many people. But
what's taking you to Washington? Are you there in
well,
behalf of NSFM, or are you there as a
yes,
okay?
yes. So as an NSFM president, I am also on the board of FCM, which is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And they've just put a very small contingent together. There's a National Association of Cities conference. I've actually spoken at that before in my pre-life. That's being held in Washington, and they've asked me if I would be part of that. And I couldn't say yes fast enough. So conversations with with our counterparts in the US. The premier has done that, and I have to say I love it when he's over there and he's coming back and he's saying we're having these conversations, because both sides are going to suffer. This is not just Canada. This is both sides, and we need to hear from them. What are their concerns? What are ours? Yeah, and an opportunity to do some workshops and things like that. So excited about that. It was just last minute, so didn't even have time to update you and let you know we're going. But both
No,
my
no.
CAO.
If you don't mind, I have a question that I want to ask
Yeah,
about this
yeah,
because
go ahead if I can
I
answer it.
know Neil Como, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Rural Forum Chair, Kathy
Mhm.
Valentino, second Vice President of FCM, and Allison
Excellent.
Story, all
Mhm.
just were in Washington D.C. at the
Yeah.
National Counties Association, or I
Yes.
forget the acronym,
Yeah.
and they said there was a positive, but there was some pushback against what their message was. What's your message to the U.S. mayors that you're going to be speaking with? I know this is very last minute. I'm putting you on the spot here, but what's your message that you're going to be bringing to them to say this is not just going to impact us, it's going to impact you?
Yeah, and that's a fair question. And we haven't sat down to talk about it because we're just literally in the last 2 days finding out that we're going. But it's a fair question. And I think part of the conversation will be, do we have an understanding? It's not, I can't tell people what to do and they can't tell us what to do. But do we understand that this is hurting both of us? And, what are some things you're thinking that could kind of, ease the concerns of our citizens? Because it doesn't matter if it's the president or a governor or what it is, it all comes down to the people on the streets. So how do we alleviate that? And what can we bring back to Canada that would be helpful for both sides, and what can we leave? So, those types of things. Just an understanding that this is going to hurt both of us.
So now I know this is not going to be our last conversation we have about this
No,
conversation. So we will probably chat when you get back to Nova Scotia or when you're down in
certainly.
Washington. Pam, President Mood, thank you so much for sitting down with me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it's always a pleasure to learn about what's going on in Nova Scotia. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this.
Always my pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. We hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the municipal realm in Nova Scotia. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, and follow us on social media. For even more content and learn more about the stories and people we feature on this show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time here on Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.